This demonstration will cover the fifth of 6 main steps in the process of constructing a hand drawing. Now that we have bones to guide us, we need to add the interphalangeal joints, the IP joints of each digit. This will involve finding two midpoints, first for the line of each bone, and then for the segment between that midpoint and the tip of the line. Now, IP joints are smaller than MCP joints, so we can use a dime as our coin to trace here. Starting with the thumb, now the middle joint of the thumb is actually an MCP joint, not an IP joint. We could use a nickel for it, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll stick with the dime for the rest of this step. So first thing to do is use your ruler. We'll measure this line, find the midpoint by dividing that distance by 2, and then mark it with a small tick mark. And then we'll measure from that tick mark to the end of the line, divide that distance by 2 to find the midpoint. We'll mark a small tick mark there too. Once you've got your tick marks, you'll center the dime on the first one and trace it. That'll give us the MCP joint of the thumb. And then we can slide the dime up, center it on the second tick mark, and trace another circle for the IP joint of the thumb. And that takes care of that one. Process for the fingers is very similar. So measure the length of this line, divide it by 2 to get our midpoint, and mark it with a small tick mark. Then we'll do the same thing for this segment, measure it, find the midpoint, mark it with a tick mark, and then it's more tracing. So we can slide the dime up, center it on the tick mark, trace the circle, slide it up again, center it on that tick mark, and trace a circle for the second IP joint of the index finger. Now the process for the rest of the fingers, I'm not going to show moving the dime and tracing for each one. I'm just going to eyeball it for the sake of time. So we'll find the midpoint and draw a tick mark. Find the midpoint, draw another tick mark. Do a circle for that IP joint. A circle for this IP joint. Now some people, instead of doing the measurements and making tick marks and then making circles, once you've got the finger bones drawn, they'll actually do something similar to what we did for the knuckles and the fingertips. Start roughly halfway between and estimate a curve, and then draw the circles where those curves intersect the finger bones. If you're good at estimating distances by sight, that can be a handy shortcut. If you're not, then it's easier just to stick with measuring each finger separately and placing the joints. And it's up to you. You know what you're comfortable with as far as finding a balance between speed and accuracy. But in any case, now we've got the interphalangeal joints labeled on each finger, and that makes us ready to move on to the final step in the construction process and start putting some meat on these bones.